further analysis on the situation in Gaza, we're joined from Cairo by Mr. Mohamed Ezz Eldin, Al-Ahram Managing Editor. Welcome, Mr. Ezz Eldin, to Qnews. So today marks the first day of the religious feast, Eid al-Adha. How are the ongoing conflict and the deteriorating conditions impacting and casting a shadow over the civilian population in Gaza?
Thanks for having me in Qnews and many happy returns. The Eid al-Adha in Gaza without joy and celebration and more of bloodshed of defenseless Gazan people, and even the scenes of celebration in the West Bank weren't as before. Gaza has no celebration and Eid. He has a shortage of aids and deprivation of humanitarian standards, in addition of the suspension of the GHF in providing the very small amount of the aid distributed in chaos situations. And today, the occupation Israeli forces circulated new red pamphlets in the north to leave these areas and displace them under the pretext of that these areas are banned from presence. With the suspension of the aids of yesterday and today, we found that the situation in Gaza is catastrophic and is waiting for a relief of the international community following the distribution of the Israeli American contractors in distributing the aid. Therefore, we will see the situation along with the ongoing bombardment and the warning the residents either in the West Bank or in Gaza in showing any types of celebration, and even in Jerusalem there is a great restraints for the prayers and urging them to leave the place as possible. Certainly it is not the best of Eid, but the Palestinian resistance is still there.
So what are the immediate humanitarian consequences of the suspension of aid activities by the Gaza Relief Foundation, and do you think that could change over the coming days?
The foundation started its operations based on the unprofessional pattern. There is a shortage of the distribution centers, and there are points of distribution, distributing the aid in order to execute the Israeli tactic military operations. In addition to the state of chaos at some areas, along with targeting residents while they're hidden for getting the humanitarian aid. In addition, more killing and the exposure of the matter before the international community. Some of the leaders of the foundations were fired in order to change its operation in a more professional pattern, and I think it is matter either far away of this. But if the international organizations, along with the UN, with the international pressure to return the relief organizations of UN, the Crescent and the Red Cross, I think distribution will be improved. The obstacles are operational and bureaucratic by the occupation forces, in addition to the ongoing bombardment against the civilians while they are hidden for getting the aid or returning back to the north once again. I think the matter is required more of the international effort and pressure to redistribute the aid based on the previous system in the Gaza Strip in general under the international relief agencies.
Mr. Ezz Eldin, Hamas has in principle welcomed the ceasefire negotiations, but they demanded some changes and improvements, as they say. How significant is accepting these ceasefire negotiations, and what sort of changes would they require?
There are two opinions. The first one is logical, which is the abide with the situation on the ground. Hamas did not request from the Palestinian section specific demands, but requested the cessation of the fire and leaving the occupied territories by the Israelis in return of the release of the hostages. And I think this is in one term, and then followed of the half of living hostages and followed by the others in the following phases. And the other point that says that the situation is catastrophic, and there is a call by Hamas to release the hostages only. And I think this is going to be a great gambling, particularly that the Israeli occupation forces do not target basically to the return or retrieve the hostages, but targeting the administrative trisection of the Gaza Strip in addition to what is named eradicate Hamas. What they do, in fact, is the elimination of the Palestinian people, in addition of the failure of displacement plan due to the firm Egyptian stance and the Arab Summit resolutions and the Arab plan of reconstruction, along with the international community, pressured by the French side following their visit in Egypt and the European pressure into international arenas lately. And I think it is exposed the reality, in fact, and the Palestinian resistance are logic. I mean, their demands, but for the other point, that the full release of all detainees uncontrolled, as the Israeli forces do not respect the conventions and made a breach of this ceasefire on the second phase and resumed the bombardment on the 18th of March, following the return of the Palestinian people to their destroyed houses and started a new war in addition to the military war, which is the starvation war.
Yes, from Cairo, that was Al Ahram newspaper managing editor, Mr. Mohamed Ezz Eldin. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us here on Q News.